옴 아홈. 대주로 나버다라 공리 로레도 소리가 이제 취도 취지바다 간 애들이 저당 취지디 취지바데 애들이 죽어래야 가리다 샘도 죽어래 새노랑 이 야나 되고 고랑 이게 저 도산의 마음밤도 요래 이런 데랑 고래 해서 내가 그샘 죽어래 해서 똑같은 거는 막지 말고 어서 내 강래들 샘 코랑 땅만 땅 주지 그 말이면 나도 샘 똑같이 죽어 그래 저 똑바로 땅만 죽어 그래 내가 죽어 그래 똑같이 뭐지 이제는 내식이 뭐 그런 상만 줘야 요 말이지 라미가 딱 톱다로 샘사지에 되고 여자 배순 머리 파타도 좀마다 저 도든지 레벨 감이들이 죽고 말이지 람을 감이들이 저 감주고 그래서 내가 크리스마 강리들이 디생 바로 신나랍종 상쪽선 남녀 이바저로서 디생은 시바다 주의 유냠정스럽 라좀만 몸바데 제다니 특이도 되면 뭐 특이죠 그 강은 되다 유제 디시바데다 나게 이게 심말 유장 볼 거고요래 먼저 좀 디바데 디싱되다 이게 하죠 유장 뭐 시와트와 되거 나는 삼대오나 마디 보걸 하장 상보요 베티 장보요래 베티다 버더니 유장제 파라도스 만들었더니 삼대오나 람지 그때 파라도스 만들고 창기요래 이제는 나게 되는 엄마 라리소비 시비시 다시 라리소비 스로들 삼노 당신아 파라도스 만들 바로 세수로 제자 요만 그다 이제 맞춰서 줘봐 좀 삼대 시합 삼대 요래 시합도 담아도지 시합가리 나지 니 매봐 나비 뭐지 시합도 장면은 파라도스 방아들 아미가 삼대 장보도 마지가 보고도 집에지는 대 동물이 지는 어때 파티가 상가되고 야 짐마 르 차차가도 오마다 좀 짐마에 주점 때려 놓아 봐도 중대자 놓았던 거요 말 주점에 주바다디 강에 같이 때는 그막 한번 그 마저 바로 공소를 주바를 네 그 삼티 님 팀이 바빠고 되게 요래 배나 되게 말해 뭐지 되게 삼티지 그렇게 대비될 삼티가 된 거예요 되게 삼티지 이제만 저점 조바 종주 삼티지 대습제 창거요 그래 내가 되니 시합들이 아그 버리 다 대주고 나나 세서 용띠 야오는 중저가 매발다고 송 다 되려 다 지와서 다들 인 나그 뭐가 야고 그것도 뭐 가야 그러냐 들어서 참아지 주발이 되는 덤시 다 고가세라 그것도 가야 되는데 섭지석에서 이제 샥싹 타통 그것들 없는데 미 동시에 논방을 되고 그때 시합도 참으면 되고서 내가 그 되게 하고서 대 삼재가 용띠리 나니랑 이거 삼재는 들어라는 너무나 오만한 거래 제 삼재가 용띠리 삼재 이바다도 줄랑 이제 주인자 뭐 대셔 바로 쓰느라고 알아도 선발 나한테는 이거 창거요 대 창거요 사제가 삼재 다 삼재도 다치 뭐 인성 바로도 써봤는 레버송하고 내가 돌게 되면 제바처럼 줘봤으면 되게 타고 요래 타토가들이 삼띵이 시합을 때 타고 요래 다 삼띵 요래 삼띵이 되잖아 다 삼바된 얘기 요나 대절을 때 내가 토리고 막 톱고 요래 나도 뭐 내가 톱고 토리가 저서는 내 창거리 점바라 때니 주섬을 때니 물리 조바라 때니 도상보 체령보 동디바 야 저들을 때니 다다다 라게 내가 가르치는 때니 용암이 봐 저기 용암이 봐 고고래 다들 좀 저리 되고서 체도 좀서는 이제 다 동동에서 네 뭐지게 강하대다다 통통은 송을 상쪽되는 데니 잡도지 뭐 특히 배세 장소를 특화성 거 봐주지 쏘는데 다 바지 쳐래 바지랑 바지까지는 차통을 깜로래 다 강에서 못했다 정말 잘하니 보고 뭐 싶어 미치겠다니 갑자기 세요고 제쇼고 되는 보고 장난이 돼 보고 먹고 대처고 말아 보고 지우는 세 보고 봐도 갑자들이 몇 번 파육을 배지 대서 버리지 저 코트지 데르데르데르 자자다 삼제의 면은 중도 용용디 뒤에 바로 지나라 동배 상촉선은 나는 이 뭐죠 다시 삼어도 다 삼제의 다쳐버리 다 삼제의 내가 도리지 다속 사지에 고마도 봐 뭐도 뭐 싫어되는 다속 사지가 저런다고 요래 대상을 되게 뭐 다시라니 소리마다 총준이란 게 로동 아마 재미들지 대마도 찍고 시험을 대 자살제 시험을 이거래 something 지압라서 시험을 배 something 되는데 옛날에 마시기도 어떻게 그래 그거 다 가는도 그래 마시라 가는 마시리 지는 저래 내가 저 시에바래 그랑이 소도만데 강미들이 총질을 넣었을 막는 럽주요리서 럽주송을 우리들이 자세 라리 소리만 대선 럽주사래서 강에 되는 다들 되는 자세 라리 소리만 같이 니나 탕케야 하면서 나중에는 냠진 콜로데들이 다 대위지 초과도를 가를 고를 해도 로만 탐지에 대해서 가가도 고다 그 가를 고도들 동들이 싸고 딴 거에 다 평균치 모르겠어 그 대가들이 나중에 콜로나 아저들이 같이로나 탕케야면 같이 고나서 들이지 못해 통매게 로폭도 빠데 저그래서 그러니까 아직 로폭된 통이 라미 명이 몇초 통소 하우스한테 무슨 소리 하고 요 말이지. 라마 강연 미치지. 오, 다들 생미 양도 되는데 무시바도 준비가 뭐지. 오, 데리데리 콩 먹고 살아야 돼. 먹고 와가 초코면도 무슨 도미지. 로폭된 통이 몇 초도 들이대리 다 무슨 도미 거바자 대라니 소리면 빠져. 빠송을 안에 소리면 되지. 이따 오면 양도 로로테 생미 샤야 돼. 초아도 돼. 멋지 용제 라마를 온토를 먹을지는 멋져 통화상 새끼는 이제를 멋지는 될까봐 또 한번 듣고 나 송을 상제 송을 대다로 대신 바로 쓰는 라도데 그래서 족샘도 짜친 거 삼대도 짜친 보면 다 양당양대 그러라고 싸는 것도 장족샘 얘들이 창제나 다음 막게 첫상적으로 상을 첫들 첫 삼대로는 나디 파시라고 그래甚至이제는 상제에는 차로나지 차대요. 차로도 저거를 돌리는 걸 대지 고땡서 보는 다 팽도 다 삼제 고도 대장장들 되게 작가리시나 대세 시에요. 대다 사축되는 거야지 맞아지. 다들 예야매 받을 다 다는데 내가 고소다 시간다 득방매 조바다 가서 매서 다 삼제다 보죠. 참만 대샤 로빈지나 다 삼대다 보자. 대사 속설은 저를 대시해요. 대대다다 대동지 대지리다 내 같이 보래. 대책 과자 많이 생산마당 같이 보래라 말산에 땅을 같이 보래 싸면 들이 가들이 다생동이 오 대화다 대외죠. 또 삼대마도 감성수 봤으면 요 말이지. 사제네 로가도 그냥 마다냐 강 받들. 시대의 남이 이제들 시대의 남이 이제 다 제주가 다 삼제를 하거나 그래서 요즘까지 양당양도 제일 이 사속도 양당양도 제일 것은 이대로 양당양도 매비바 차고 요소 이제 딱 봐도 되는 이런 게 대다다 레지얼이 소비만도 참아를 되고요 이들 마차림에 버리 되다다 나와 사제be 제주라 파들들이 잡아 가지고 전부 주주부 제제도 레레 제제도 뭐야 우리 처음에 수하고서 지금 하고 도면 어따 사제가 타이와를 항상 말말말말 대발이 철들라고 생각을 들어버려. 오, 제가 말이 제일 많으면 사제죠. 주랑 그 생각 내려도 혼대이가 또 뒤에다가 탑쳐버리기 시합 사제 시합 항상 사제가 하래야 되지. 그거는 이제 좋지 못 째도 대그들이 랑그 줄 초아까지 째지 샘 무슨 찍바람에 이나한테 째고 듣고요. 그리 대외대 미참만 반지 가지 가거리 가도는데 오 대레데 소속의 삼세 해배 봤다. 요즘 방 봤어. 요즘에 봤대. 샘 요즘에 방 삼세를 요즘에 말해. 그것도 대서 가거사리서 대다가 되고 that's the law. The Hong Kong and Kotor Peggy or it, or they people talk some of them, they give you in some year. They told you what I'm going to do. There is also you want to they tell doing to Pasil so one Momaso, they don't chimbo you then to change Vaso, to change that and temperature, that, Saturday, Nang to G, some to G, some you young.
So then, Dharma friends, we continue. So on page 19. And so, first of all, the Dharma. What does the Dharma actually mean? And so literally it means that we need to alter, transform ourselves. And so what needs to be transformed or altered is the mind. So the mind is like a water flowing down, and it needs a path that it can travel through. So we need to change the mind, although in the Dzogchen it says we do not need to alter the mind. We let the mind be in its unaltered state. So the difference here is because the Dzogchen is speaking about the pure mind as it already is. So the completely pure mind, of course, is something that we do not need to alter. What we do need to alter is the polluted, the defiled mind. The Dzogchen is speaking about the fundamental Buddha nature that is already pure, that doesn't need to be altered. Maitreya said, there is nothing to be removed from the mind, no fault to be removed, and no quality to be gained. So this is speaking from the ultimate perspective of the fruition. There's nothing that needs to be altered from the perspective of the fruition. But from the perspective of the path, we do need to alter the defiled state of the mind. So now coming back to the text in the small print, it says next on, we are praying for a kind disposition and diligence in the 6 perfections and aspiring to attain favorable conditions for these. So these favorable conditions. So I myself, I don't know the scriptures so well, but so again, my own take on it is that. So first of all, a kind disposition. It is a gentle disposition. For example, the arhats of the past, their disposition was peaceful and subdued. Or for example, mother treats her child with much gentleness. She's very gentle. So a gentle mind, a gentle disposition. And that again happens naturally if you have love. If you have love, then within that, the 6 paramitas are naturally complete. And also, from my own perspective, I connect that to the 37 bodhisattva practices. I've always taught the 37 practices, even though I might not know how to explain it well, but I have really thought about it. And so it also speaks about the perfections, the paramita in there. So actually, when it really comes to perfection, there is hardly anyone who has really perfected those paramitas. But still we are practicing the 6 paramitas. But what we are generally lacking is the paramita of wisdom. And that is because we don't understand the non-duality of self and others. And so therefore we lack wisdom. A mother naturally is kind and gentle with her child. And so within that, the 6 paramitas are complete. For example, she practices generosity by giving her body of flesh and blood and milk. And she practices ethical discipline because she never harms the child. is always patient with the child, no matter how difficult the child may be. The mother never hates the child, is always patient with the child. And regarding meditative concentration, the mother also really practices that because she always thinks of the child day and night. And so Rinpoche asked me, isn't that true? So that is meditative concentration. So therefore mothers really practice the 5 paramitas, but often lack the paramita of wisdom. And that is because of this, of self-grasping, of my child, this is my child. And in this way, a single fault destroys 100 good qualities. Because a mother, for example, might just care about her own child and not really about other children. She might think that I want that my child turns out well, but doesn't really care what happens to any other child. And that's actually, the same is true for even animals, for example. And also the way we treat animals, for example, even though we care for our own children, and we still go and eat the flesh of others, and we kill them, we drink their blood, and so on, without much thought about it. And so when I reflect on that, then I gain an understanding of the importance of love, the quality of love. And that happens, for example, naturally when a mother loves her child. Because she loves her child, naturally the milk flows from her breast. For example, even in animals, the milk naturally flows as a quality of love. The moment we are born, as soon as a child is born, milk begins to be produced, and that's a quality of love. So again, the 5 paramitas are naturally complete or practiced by the mother. And with wisdom, she should also understand the quality of love, of loving all sentient beings. So the Buddha has said that if you just have love, then you will still gain the qualities of the higher realms. Because if you have love, you will practice generosity, ethical discipline, and patience. And that will lead to birth in the higher realms. Then ultimately, the paramitas of meditation and wisdom lead to the attainment of enlightenment. So with those 3 paramitas, we still attain birth in the higher realms. For example, if we practice ethical conduct, ethical discipline, we will be born as a precious human being. If we have patience, we will have a long life, harmonious friends, and a beautiful appearance. If you have diligence, then in all your activities, you will be undistracted, no matter what you do. And therefore, you will be successful in your activities. But often our diligence is focused on the benefits of this life. And so again, coming back to that quote that I came across in the Great Liberation Sutra, the mind of someone, of the lesser vehicle, is like the water collecting in a footprint of a cow. So that water very quickly dries out. For example, we have love, but then when we encounter difficulties, and we lose this love. For example, there is some places with very strict laws. For example, in China, there was this law where one could only have one child, and then if you had another child, then they would give you some medicine to abort the child. And all of that is because we don't understand the quality of love. And so therefore, it's very important. This is really what we should take from this line here, the kind disposition. We should remember the importance of love. And then, so when we have love, then temporarily we are born in the higher realms, and ultimately it becomes the cause for attaining enlightenment. And so when I was young, I was familiar already with the 37 practices. I had memorized them and received teachings from the Guru Jime Dorje. And even though I didn't really know much and couldn't really explain it well, it still stayed in my mind. And in fact, I still can't explain it so well. There are still parts of it I can't explain well. For example, when it comes to the parameters of meditation or wisdom. But I still make every effort to explain them as well as I can. And many disciples love me for that. Even if I don't know much, if I don't know something, I can also ask a question to someone else. And so the 37 practices is something that I have learned since I was very young, and I really have come to the conclusion that it is actually something that can be accomplished, the 37 practices, because I feel myself, I have accomplished parts of the 37 bodhisattva practices. And what is a sign of that? A sign is that no matter how much I hear it, no matter how often I read it, I never grow tired from it. It always excites me to read the 37 practices. So, for example, when I go to places like Taiwan and so on, all I really do is speak on that, and I spin my prayer wheel. And the disciples love me for that. And so I believe that there is a meaning behind that, and it has to do with also my conviction in the 37 practices, and also the prayer wheel. And so the 37 practices were composed by a bodhisattva called Mulcho Tome. And so also recently I came across this picture that shows his practice cave. And when I saw that cave, spontaneously I started to cry. And I was really amazed by that, because I don't actually know Mulcho Tome in person. And there's not even an image of him on there, it's just his cave. But when I saw that, this uncontrived, unfabricated devotion for him arose in me, and I started to cry. So a real incredible feeling arose in me when I saw this image. And that is why I wanted to add this image to our new print of the 37 practices. So when you read this booklet over and over again, you can really develop an understanding and a real feeling for these practices. For example, when such tears appear, sometimes the tears flow naturally, the spontaneous tears flow when we develop devotion to a guru or the three jewels, or when we cultivate compassion for sentient beings. And the Buddha said that these kind of tears purify the negativities accumulated in hundreds of aeons. And so that is because we remember the kindness, for example, of a bodhisattva. But this is something I have reflected on myself over and over again. And so regarding this term, bodhicitta actually, so in Tibetan it is Chang Chup Sem. So Chang and Chup, Sem means mind, and so Chang Chup means enlightenment, and Chang means to purify, and Chup means to acquire or master. And so it is purify, master. But to me, actually, it should be master, purify. So it would actually be not Chang Chup, but Chup Chang. Because first we acquire love, and then that purifies, then self-grasping. And so then the ice block of sentient beings, it melts in this way. Even though sentient beings are fundamentally by nature Buddhas, their mind is like an ice block, and they need the warmth of love to melt. So by reading these 37 practices, you can really gain a very profound understanding. And this is the understanding I have gained. It's really the importance of love, the significance of that. And that is why I make every effort to teach on it, to explain it over and over again. And so I've come to a point where I really never forget love as a result. It never leaves my mind. It is said that there is no greater negativity than hatred, and no greater practice or austerity than patience. So therefore, everyone should protect their love with patience. For example, if you have a friend, think that I must protect this love for my friend with patience. And then that love will also turn into bodhicitta. And so when you read these words, it should not just be an understanding, but you should really gain an experience and really contemplate it. Is it really so important? And why is it so important? And how is love really the cause of all happiness? And I've really come to the conclusion that there, in the three worlds of existence, there is really just one single cause of happiness, and that is love. Wherever you go, from the state of Buddhahood, the God realms, down to hell, the most important and precious quality is love. The only cause of happiness is that. So therefore I found it very important to reflect on that and to think about that, to keep that in mind again and again continuously. Always thinking I must have bodhicitta. And when you think in this way, then just naturally all negativity will leave your mind. If that always stays in your mind, then negativity will leave your mind. And so as a result, I've been able to pass on the 37 bodhisattva practices because I myself have gained an experience in the 37 practices. And there's really no teaching of the Buddha that is not contained in the 37 practices. Even though the Buddha's teachings are really extensive, there is the whole body of Gangyur, the words of the Buddha. There are 84,000 different teachings, and each of them can be subdivided into further 84,000. So then you may think that, well, then it's just a little bit too difficult to study the Buddha Dharma because there's no way to ever fully understand it. But that's not the case too, because you also have to know how to summarize it, how to bring it down to its essence. And even though the Dharma is so extensive, so vast, it has a single essence, and that is the mind itself. It all comes down to your mind. So the Buddha was extremely wise for presenting the Dharma in this way, so vast and yet so condensed. And when I think about that, I really a real feeling of wonder really arises in me. I feel this is really incredible. The Buddha's wisdom is really incredible. And again, a very strong feeling arises in me when I just think about that. And because I myself am able to develop such a feeling, I know that others can develop the same feeling because our minds are one and the same. When you reflect, you come to this conclusion of this is how it really is. And when you come to this conclusion, then that is when you abandon deception. As you mentioned before, the essence of ethical discipline is abandoning deception. That is when you abandon deception. And so I sincerely feel without deception that I have ascertained this and I love others truly. And that is why I think that some others love me too. I do whatever I can to benefit them. For example, I'm wearing this liberation mantra on a T-shirt and so on, and whatever I do, I'm trying to benefit others. And that is also why some other teachers like me, although I don't have any learning or any good qualities other than that. So these words here are quite meaningful. So that is the kind disposition, and then for the favorable conditions, there are outer, inner, and secret favorable conditions.
여들은 고아담도 요래 다들 사제 거성 제반은 이니다다 조트버거 제와트버거 나초트버거서 막고시 요래 송을때 고아도 우리 영화데데 출이 메이데오라고 되리 다 그것을 이 도복디 거는 다 그때 도미가 꺼봐가지고 독서 그때 도미가 남을나 토비야 요 말이서 오, that they interpret 사지 가랑 그 생을 요기도 안하는 쳐봐야 뭐 하고서 대니 마티로 오 어째 통해 네 너가 담아는 데가서 라마 축을 고발지 님이 뭐 무슨 소소 용왕아도 말에 배송을 공시에 로마도지 말에 바쳐 마시로지 자라와 요에 되지 공주권 토고리 토르는 용왕을 요래 셀도 토야요 말지 내 lok실은 셈을 제시하면 동하고 그런 거 속에 다 셈을 제시하면 하고 요래 지금 하서 요봐 먹기가 들은 이 솔로도 대화도는 소리도 때 하고서 얘는 다 조트버거 시바데 트버거 문에들 라마디 적티 다들 막서로 땅을 때 토미가 맞아 토미야 요말 갈거 오 조트버거 소노리 건드라도 tanka 가져 tanke 토요 트버거 문에 라마 적대 제시요 말했어 들 가래를 빠 가는 때 라마디 무슨 레스 오 땅을 때 토미가 빠져 tanka 뒤에 뭐는 저 이도 말이야 야고 용례들이 참아 이토고 당이 이도 막 저거 거지 오그 이도 막겠지 뭐 우리 토미를 뭐 주는 데가도 대 우리 토미 턱도 참대를 랑라 참대를 배 대위는 따들이 문제들이 니지 가르치도는 저도 건드라다 타카 탐기 산지공성 레스 랑강공성이 이치제라 산지공성 레스 대르티네 제지티스 오거 다수 공과적으로는 송에 로봇도 지장 동시에 송에 리디 로봇도 우리 말이 사진이 말이 사례 도래지 말이지 디 자시산 조선마든 제바당 그랬다면 용띠 대하고서는 사진은 정대상 조세구 용띠 하고서는 오디 용띠 제 따대로 거도 말고 또 내리에 መን당 사고는 다 저도 그 딱고다가 그 당한도 문에지를 때도 하고 리상 제를 무슨 롱동고 요리 배나 잡지 소자를 뭐지 그랬더니 자다 로마 급아서 낭물이 제가 로마 탐지 제요 종산지제 잡고 공들 대시 초ling 섬나 계자시 로마 거도 계자시래 다다 조지 로마 거 막고 계자시게 요리지 무시절 다 코소 소리 소리 다 무슨 코소 저 야가 담지 시해서 무슨 덕자는 얘기 시해서 막 대말 소주 세고 세는 것이 라다랑세 예미 하고 상초세는 이는 쳐도 쳐지 봐야 돼 하고 요래 오 하고 저렇게 자시해 요래 무슨 레스 라다랑 매가래 되다 무슨 시지 너랑 매번 석탈로서 너랑 매번 동지 석탈시 소래 오 대도 세번째로 또는 다다 코디가 제치여 하고서는 오 드리다시 무슨 적었을 때 롱거데 죽을 롱거 롱티가 샤는 롱거 자동차로送的 같이 오 그거 잡아다봤을 때 나가게 베데 그거 다든 영화만 참았을 거래 오 대도 참아대 주마다고 막 대대 주마다고 될줄 거래 또 그요래 대도 하고 땅 어째 도면 무슨 그러 타카다는 무슨 제품도 들리는 것도 도미게 뭐서 토는 데가도 안내라를 세시 그걸 앞상 토서 이제 공고 봐 중통되잖아 그래서 오 된거저 도미 레서 센데 발레라 그거 드복레 되는 데에서만 배 마시베서는 좋아되라가 물스레디 같이서는 되는 아 요리서 말할 배송을 어떤 것도 도미 무슨 레서 삼초 요래 대바지나 아 무슨 도미 뭐저 도미 무슨 자도 요서 어떤 자초고 요래 당 무슨 레서 송지 동지 상속성 용띠지 하고서는 들이들이 좀 달라마라 치리도 그 라마 죽을 거와지들 죽어도 세가들랑 렉도 말이 좀 처음에 라나 대신경 뭐 요래 대신경 뭐 상해요 대다 가사까리 저 사제에서 뭐 어디 거와지는 대신이 시 소리 들어가고 빠지잖아 다스지를 핀사래 그때 들으라고 빠지야 달라는 소리 많이 빠지 지요래 데레데레 튼진장 튼진의 대마들 튼진의 랑랑의 생겨 튼지 세상 족생들하게 지 사반 나버다와 레베 봐서는 세인 튼진 차이잖아 야 다들 번마 아버지서 보리야 남들에게 또 세요 말이지 오 강매 제도 요리 직사제 때마서 아주 강요 말이지 다스로 되는데 지도는 다고 내가 같이 제발 참아 진다 탑지가 제발이지. 진다 탑지가 가리실 사제의 추동 추기의 용기도 하고 상적적으로 용기도 하고 뜻이 탑지의 샤지 탑지가 다고는 들다. 다스로 그 참아 진다 탑지가 저거리. 고도의 상속 선발이 상적성은 되지 되다 되지 되다 나 맥지를 별로 못해들 배샤토를 상고도 장가 줘야 요마데 나 맥지 토르스 나라 강야 요마가 대도 되지 상적성의 용기게 대도 사제가 뭐놈다 되더니 상적성은 되지도 땅 아메리카는 내가 같이 지는 이 배샤카데 탑절이야 내가 라차 체지 탑을 같이 탑절이 때문에 강 가라사 많은 놈 땅에 서버 넘버 타봐서 되어라 이라 이게 됐다 되는데 무슨 다다 직진스 목에 다다 체들랑은 통지도 볼 용성을 뒤로 랑만 거 도쳐거리 체들랑 잡을 것들이 라마 개비신이 담시게 제반 처리에 대해서 상으로 다음에 주지 용들이 항상 알이지 뭐 그렇게 지레까지나 다다다 잡을 피니사와 듬니 요래 누리사와 듬니 요래 때 생구 제발 하고서는 다 듣지도 도만 듣지고나 다 마음고서 셉지도 말다고 하지 다 산적들도 나다 정말 그런 소시에티는 이제 제투고 요래 되는 데다 듣지다 내말 뭐아서 그때가 같이 로지던 데에서 시바이데
Also, when I saw that image of Ngulcho Thomas cave, also a new kind of certainty and understanding also arose in me. And so that was, Milarepa, for example, said that when you have unceasing mindfulness and awareness, then a certainty can arise within your mind. And so there are these teachings on the Buddha's 3 kayas that explain how the kayas are contained within our mind. So the understanding now that I gained here by really reflecting on it is that, so regarding the Nirmana kaya, for example, there are different kinds of Nirmana kaya. There are the created Nirmana kayas, the incarnated Nirmana kayas, the manifold Nirmana kayas. And so that is something I've understood, but I haven't really gained such a profound experience on it until that point when I saw this image of the cave. So when I saw this image of the cave, I thought I really need a picture of Ngulcho Thome too. But of course there is nowhere in the world where you can find a picture of Ngulcho Thome. So then I thought, this is a confused thought to think that way. Because the Buddha himself had said, everything is complete within your own mind. So I recognized the confusion here. And so when wanting to find an image of Ngulcho Thome, also I remember this quote by Trikung Master Dharma Raja, who said, recognize the Dharmakaya as the Guru. This is the perfect non-dual devotion. Also Milarepa, before he passed into nirvana, his disciples requested him not to die. They said, you have complete control. You have attained freedom, so please don't die. But Milarepa replied, the body has to perish because the body consists of the elements. But the mind can never die. The mind will continue to pervade the elements. So when one has realized the nature of the mind, one has realized that the mind cannot die. It is beyond birth and death. And this is also how one realizes past and future lives. And one realizes that if one engages in negative actions, one is born in the 3 lower realms. And if one engages in virtuous actions, one takes birth in the higher realms. And so now, regarding the different Nirmanakayas, so, and there, as you mentioned, there's different kinds of Nirmanakayas, and one of them is the created Nirmanakaya. A created Nirmanakaya is, for example, a statue or a temple, a tanka. So it is a physical representation of a deity or master. of a guru. And so I was looking for this image of Ngulcho Tome. And of course I can't find a real picture of him. And so then I remembered the created Nirmanakaya, which is a statue or a tankam. So then I realized it could just be a drawing of Ngulcho Tome, because I know that the guru's mind cannot die. So the guru's mind will actually pervade that drawing, even if it's not a photograph. It will pervade, the mind will pervade that image, that drawing too, just like the mind pervades a tanka or a statue. And so then I was looking for a really beautiful drawing. And that's also significant, that an image is really beautiful, pleasing to the mind, because then this is how our mind kind of becomes enchanted or drawn to this image. So I felt it was sufficient to have a drawing of Ngulcho Tome. And so this is the certainty here that I gained. It is that a created Nirmanakaya, such as a painting, a tanka, a statue, actually is the real Buddha. I really cultivated trust in that, that these images really are the Buddha. And Lord Jigten Sumgön himself had said in the Gongchik that even the conventional, the relative, even on the conventional or relative level, which is kind of the level that's not ultimate reality, the Buddhas perform the benefit of being. So a purpose can be accomplished. And so an image, for example, is like something, a relative or on a conventional level. We look at images. And so people may think that when you see a statue, that's not the real Buddha. That's just a piece of rock, or that's just earth or something like that. But that's not the Buddha. But that's not true, because here we need to understand the qualities of those great bodhisattvas and the scope of their enlightened activities, the quality of their bodhicitta. And it can pervade, their mind can pervade these images like a statue or a painting. And if you have certainty in that, then it is possible that this image will actually communicate with you, or maybe even give you a prophecy, and that has happened before. For example, there was this particular image of Tara that Sogyal Rinpoche gave me, and I also passed it around to many disciples. And there were stories of how this image of Tara had spoken to Sogyal Rinpoche, also to Tsongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, Jamgyal Kongtrul, and the Derchen Chuling. So they have actually communicated with Tara directly. Now, so there is a story of a teacher where Tara appeared and spoke. And so then again, one may think that, so it seems that the deities just speak to those great beings, but they don't speak to us inferior beings. But that's also not true. The deity speaks to anyone, but you have to open your own mind and be receptive to that. So you have to understand the bodhicitta and the quality of that deity, and through devotion, open your mind and trust. And then if you really understand that in an instant, a deity may communicate. And in fact, you realize the deity has never been separated from me. For example, in the Yamantaka practice, there's one line in the refuge, in the prostration, where it says, in a prostration it says, I offer ultimate prostration from the space where there is no meeting and parting. So when one realizes the nature of the mind, one realizes that the mind is the basis of all of samsara and nirvana, and everything arises from it, from your mind. From the Dharmakaya appears the rainbow-like Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya is like rain falling down. And actually all the 5 elements are Nirmanakaya. All the illusory appearances really in this world are Nirmanakayas. And so therefore this image now that I received, this drawing that I received from Ngulcho Tome, is no different to Mülcho Tome himself. So I asked Anisamten to find a nice image, and she very quickly, immediately found a nice image of a drawing of Mülcho Tome. And I'm completely certain that this is the actual Mülcho Tome, and a very strong feeling really arises in me. I really think that this is really him. His mind really pervades this image. And great masters have said whenever we think of them, they are actually really there. For example, Milarepa had said that. So therefore, if you cultivate devotion, and if you want to meet a great being, a great master deity, you can actually meet them if you open up your mind and understand the quality of their bodhicitta. And then in the end, you realize that your own mind and the guru's mind are actually one. And then that is how you realize, how you understand the guru to be the Dharmakaya. So it is just, as it says in the Samantabhadra prayer, a question of recognizing it or not recognizing it. But you possess Buddha nature and therefore are connected to these beings. And then they appear in various forms all over the place as different images and tankas and statues and so on. And so you can gain a certainty if you reflect that these are the real being here, and they appear for the benefit of sentient beings. When we look at their image, they accomplish the benefit of sentient beings. And so that is why I really wanted to add this particular image in our new print of the 37 practices. So this is how we should understand these favorable conditions here in the small print. So on the inner level of the mind, if you have a mind, a pure intention, and a mind of bodhicitta, then so these favorable conditions we are speaking about here will naturally fall into place. For example, back when we were in Tibet in the old days, when it was me, Abo Lama, and Bunima Lama, then we were invited to come, but we didn't have even a ticket to come. But I wanted to go to propagate and benefit beings and to propagate the Buddha's teachings. And all the activities I was able to accomplish really is also due to the kindness of many kind sponsors who really understood the qualities of the Buddha Dharma and the qualities of bodhicitta, and who possess great wisdom. And therefore they themselves really are bodhisattvas. They provided all those favorable conditions in order for me to go about and benefit sentient beings. Because now coming here to America, it's not that I spend my life having a job and working and making endless money myself to fulfill all these activities. I really have nothing, and just really have love and bodhicitta in my mind, food to eat, and I recite the Mani mantra, and that's how I live. So everything really was accomplished by those kind sponsors, and that is, but also due to a vast intention. So Lord Chikden Sumgön also said, when we do not only think about this lifetime, then vast things are accomplished. So therefore, I really felt that I was able to pass on the qualities of the Holy Dharma to the disciples in this lifetime with a pure intention. And so now we can see in this world, it's all about an intention. There are some people in this world who have really a wish to benefit others, and then there's others who think about harming others. And so it really all comes down to the mind. It's all arises from the mind. And so now if we want to have those favorable conditions in the future, therefore we must cultivate the right state of mind. the mind of bodhicitta, a good intention. And so this is, when I really reflect on the qualities of that, and not the qualities of the Holy Dharma and of bodhicitta, a real sense of amazement or wonder really arises in me. So this is the teaching or the explanation on the favorable conditions that I wanted to share in relation to some stories as a kind of back information.
Tētene ia ponto teniko ngā soro che.
And of course, it's not only me, that was just an example. We can see it everywhere, really, in samsara and nirvana. And so, in this world, for example, now in the old days, there was a time where we were not able even to recite the Mani mantra or hold a mala in our hand. And people experienced so much suffering there. So this is an example of an unfavorable condition. And then an example of a favorable condition is that even though that is the case, there are those unfavorable conditions of restrictions on the Dharma. Nowadays still there is for example, Serta monastery in Tibet, that is Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok's monasteries, and still tens and thousands of disciples can stay there. So here all the favorable conditions came together, and the Buddha's teachings continue to increase naturally, like a flower growing. And so the quality here is the quality of bodhicitta. So if you think about it, you really see the significance of holding on to bodhicitta. So if you reflect on, may beings have happiness and the cause of happiness, I really must have bodhicitta. If I have bodhicitta, then that is to my own benefit and it leads to the happiness of others. And we can really directly see how this is true by just looking around in the world. For example, there are so many people in the world who experience a lot of suffering in many places in the world. And again, we must think about the causes of suffering. And then we think about it in this way, then we come to a very clear understanding, and we really understand the workings of karma. And so Lord Jigten Sumgön also said that if one has not developed a certainty in karma, then just giving lip service to the Dharma is just a lie. So it has no benefit in just speaking about the Dharma without any certainty in karma. When one has certainty in karma, one is a real Dharma practitioner. You benefit yourself and you bring happiness to others. If you just understand karma, you will understand the qualities of bodhicitta and why it is important to cultivate bodhicitta. Or when I just look around in the world of the good things that happen in the world and all the generation that happens in the world, when I think about why does this happen, it all comes down to either being a fault of self-grasping or a quality of love, a quality of bodhicitta. Who is really the one who creates suffering? Who is really the one who creates happiness? It is the mind. To give just one example, for example, we have just been through a pandemic in the world, and there were many people who did not die or get sick from the disease, so they were liberated from the disease. And still, even though we have been through such rough times, then there are some who, on top of that, add to the misery, and they, for example, start a war and try to harm people, kill people, deprive them of food, deprive them of happiness, deprive them of their freedom. And all of that is created by the mind. In the 37 practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So we can gain a very good understanding when we just think about the things that are happening in the world. We can see it directly. So with that, Dharma friends, I stop the teachings here for today. And whenever you have time, please recite the Mani mantra. And also now we have the opportunity to ask questions. It's also important that you as the disciples discuss the Dharma with each other. And now we also have the great merit of having a perfect spiritual master here. We are very fortunate. because I myself do not know how to explain everything so thoroughly. But for example, Khenpo Tenzin Rinpoche has always been teaching here really continuously. And now we also have Kewang Dashit Sering here visiting. You can also ask him questions. And asking questions is really very important. And especially to ask questions and discuss the meaning of the prayer for excellent conduct. This is a prayer that is really accepted in all the different lineages because and traditions and religions really, because everyone accepts love. For example, recently during Vajrakilaya retreat, I was told that there were participants from over 60 countries, including Islamic countries. And it really showed me that it doesn't matter what background you have, what religious background you have, everyone sees that quality of bodhicitta, and everyone basically wants to be happy, and no one wants to experience suffering. And everyone wants to experience freedom. So in any case, please take the opportunity to ask your questions, and now please take a rest.